I'm just this good, if I'm just perfect and I don't do this or I do this, they won't fight. When we start helping people, it's really important to understand that it's not a reflection of us, right? They are still going to have autonomy. We look at them and think they're suffering. And for them, it's just another day that ends in Y. It's what's familiar. It's all they've ever known.
Yep.
And that whole identity is really hard to change. Like, if I let this go, who will I be? It can be very hard to let go of what they've always known.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's been a long time coming now at this point, and so I'm super happy that we get to have this conversation. Nicola Vitkovich, right? Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah, I say Vitkovich. This is very close. I wouldn't worry about it.
Okay, great. Well, then, thank you so much for joining us. And I do have a lot to ask you today. I'm very curious about some things that I saw from Substack from you, which was I saw that you are a memory whisperer, and I just wanted to ask about what's that about, and how you got into that.
That's a long one in coming. So in 2014, I started working on becoming a practitioner of something called Faster EFT, which is a tapping modality. And I have struggled since 2014 to accurately describe what I do and how I help people. And one day in the past year, I was just sitting on the couch trying to explain what I do because of Substack, because I've been doing more posting and creating a bio, and it just came to my mind. I was like, well, I'm a memory whisperer. That's what I really help people do. I help people just let go of those painful memories that they drag people back into the trance of the past, and they just can't get free of them. And I help people get free of those memories. And it is the best way to call it is memory whispering. We just go through those memories and depotentiate the bad. And when you work with the mind and release the negative emotions, how you hold a memory inside, how you see it, hear it, feel it, transforms drastically. Sometimes it becomes the most empowering memory you could ever imagine.
And how do you,
how you see yourself.
I'm sorry, how do you access, what does it entail? Is there some form of, do you practice any form of meditation before you get into memories? Is there a practice you do to kind of get them to be able to access it? Because I know for therapy, at least for me, it took some, being able to access the memories was a bit of a challenge, because I knew only surface things and then certain things you repress. Do you see that? And if so, how do you prepare for that?
That's an awesome question. And there's a few parts of it. So just because you're not consciously aware of the memories doesn't mean your unconscious isn't. And I'm working with the unconscious mind. So they don't always have to be made conscious to make those changes and work with them. You can work with how you know you have a problem, and we can work with metaphors, and all that stuff will change. And as we get into the process, so I don't need to go have people go into a meditation or anything. We find out, identify what is it that you're experiencing in the present. That's a problem for you. How do you know you have a problem? And once you connect with that whole neural network is lit up in your brain, and the unconscious knows where it comes from. So whether we are conscious of those memories or not, you're able to work with them. And it's simpler than we make it.
Got it. And well, then that's a pretty interesting career choice. What led you there?
I'd say panic attacks. So my earliest memory at the age of 3 was having a panic attack. I remember a street sweeper coming down the street and hiding behind a green chair in my aunt's house in West Islip or West Babylon, whichever it was. And that was so crystal clear. And throughout my life, panic attacks and anxiety was just a constant background. It was a daily thing practically.
How did you know you were having a panic attack?
That's one of those look backs. You know, as I started working on myself and where the past, so fast forward to I'm in my 40s and I'm trying to get rid of the panic attacks, and I start learning how to work on memories. That was one of the first ones that came up, and I was like, oh, that's a panic attack. And then I could see all the nighttime childhood experiences that I had and didn't really understand. that was panic attack. That was a panic attack. That's anxiety. So I was able to go back and work on them. And even that speaking of memory whispering, that panic attack from when I was 3. Did you ever see the show Ally McBeal?
No. Could you
Okay.
describe it?
Ally McBeal was a great show I think it was in the 80s that I loved watching. And they had the funniest little scene in there to the Ooga Chukka song of a little naked baby goes running through the house with Ally McBeal. And it was the funniest thing in the world. And as I worked on that memory, that panic attack memory, instead of hiding behind a chair, it just somehow blended with the Ally McBeal scene. And now it's funny. Like I think of that back then when I'm 3 and I hear the song playing from Ally McBeal. I see the Ooga Chukka baby and it's just funny. It's become silly. It's not, there's no panic. There's no anxiety. There's no need to hide. There's just laughter. And that's what brought me on this journey. I started working on my own memories using these techniques. And then when things work for me, I want to share it with everybody.
Yeah. I'll say, that's, in fact, I would say that's probably the correlation here between us, is that's what's led me on this path too. So I can 100% understand that. But what I would like to know about is what, if for those that don't know or are in the path of that we are on, perhaps like on the way there, of discovering their path, so to speak, what would you say was a sign for those maybe thinking they might be having panic attacks, or they might have grown up with panic attacks? What were some giveaways of that you were experiencing that now that you look back at it?
Yeah. So I would get simultaneously hot and cold. I don't know how to, and my heart would start racing. I felt like I had to hide.
Yeah.
I had to hide. And I have some pretty clear memories when I was in my 20s when they were at the worst in my early 20s.
Right.
And I remember like I would be in a corner of my apartment just crying, shaking, and unable to cope with life. Like everything felt too big. I couldn't breathe. I'd cry, and I was unable to think rationally. I just needed to get away. It was this pervasive feeling of needing to get away.
It's interesting you say that in your 20s, it got at its worst, because for me, that was the case. In my mid 20s was when for me, I really noticed, oh, this is really, this is getting more heavy. And for me, the way that I would describe the panic attacks would be, in fact, I still once in a while still experience it. I'll wake up in the middle of the night and this rushing thought of, I should be asleep right now. What if I can't get to sleep? And then it's just this like cycle, and this what do you call it, snowball effect, where it just gets like my heart starts going, feels like my heart's going to explode. And then I have to the only way I've figured out how to kind of turn it off, and the only way that I can is to convince myself that I'm not going to sleep right now, that like I'm awake. And then I go and do something for a few minutes, like maybe 10, 15 minutes. And then once I'm convinced subconsciously that I'm awake now, then that goes away. But that's something that developed in my mid 20s. And I don't know if I'm still trying to figure out what the source is, if it's the conflict of adulthood and then like the childhood things kind of mixing and then amplified by the stress that adulthood brings on. I don't know if it's that, but my mid 20s was probably where it really amped up and is slowly coming back down. But in my mid 20s was also when I experienced that. Yeah.
For me, that was when I was 20, my parents and I and most of my family, we became estranged, or no contact, whatever you want to call that. We ceased to have anything to do with each other. And the first couple of years I was okay. I dealt with it. But then we're out in 23, 24. I started to have massive panic attacks. I mean, it amped up. Like it was almost constant. So I know what it was about then. And that went on for 13 years until we were able to mend our fences. So
saying, speaking on that, if you don't mind, can I ask about what it was like for you growing up. Did you have a lot of siblings? Were you an only child? What was childhood like?
So I have a younger sister, and my parents were really young when I'm the eldest. My mom was 19 when I was born, and my dad 23.
Mm.
So I remember there's some really good memories, but I also remember there were a lot of fights. They would fight at night a lot. And that I think contributed to panic attacks and anxiety, and simply because, and as I work with, the more people I work with, the more I find this is, for some reason as children, we always feel like it's our fault. If we were just better, if we said the right things or did the right things, we were able to control everything perfectly, that wouldn't happen. And it's simply not true. My parents had a tremendous amount of stress. I was unplanned, and they were doing the best they could. New house, new family, they did the best they could. And unfortunately, we're just not taught how to deal with emotions. Most people turn to, drinking or smoking, and they're not really good coping skills.
No, I agree with you. And it's something that with youth specifically, now me being in the age range where my parents were having kids, it's really kind of put it into perspective. When I was younger, I used to think, when I'm a certain age, in my 20s, I'll have the answers that as a kid I had questions to. And it's interesting, all these years later, I'm still very much trying to figure out the answers to those questions. And so I thought, all right, my parents were having kids at like 19. And so at 19 years old, I didn't even know who I was yet. And it was forming, it was in process. And I think that a character, or rather personality, can evolve throughout the years, maybe less as you get older, but definitely in my late teens, early adult years, I definitely was still figuring myself out. And so I can't imagine if I had kids from 19 until now, I mean, what a difference the upbringing would be for those kids, because I was still figuring myself out and how I wanted to do things. And I'm still doing that. But that's why I kind of look at it now. I'm like, yeah, I have a lot more empathy now for if you have kids that young, and what it's like. Yeah.
So I'm 56, and I figured at some point I'd start to feel like an adult or a grown-up, and I still don't, right? I have no idea how at 19 and 23 you could even possibly understand how to raise kids. It's so, I can look back with so much more compassion and understanding at this point in time. All the things I took personally, they weren't personal.
Yeah, what does this mean?
I'm trying to survive.
Yeah, that question came up a lot for me. Was what does this mean about me? And not consciously. It was something I figured out later, was subconscious, of like, what does this mean? What does this what does this reflect about me? And it's never, rarely ever about that. And so what was your relationship like with your sister? Were you close to your sister? How close were you guys in age?
We're 3 years apart, and I can't say we've ever really been close. And that's always been, that kind of sucks. So, and I mean, we don't even have contact. We haven't had contact since, it's getting on close to 10 years now, and we've never been close. It's been more like oil and vinegar.
If you don't mind me asking, what do you think the differences are? Is it just the personality?
I don't think personality so much as I think in a mistaken desire to inspire us to be better, that mom and dad would compare us. And it had the opposite effect. Like, I always felt like I came up short compared to her, and she felt exactly the same way. She always felt that she came up short compared to me. So that, I think, was a big wedge.
Comparisons are a big dilemma in my family. Is like, why can't you be more like your brothers, or why can't you be more like, I've heard that. And actually, not so much me being compared, but I've heard it speaking to like my younger sister, and there's that comparison. And it's interesting how you can have the same scenario, but different outcomes, different perspectives on that same scenario. And
it's all belief systems.
Yep. And that's 100%. That was my sister and I had this conversation about, there's just always this comparison of the boys and the girls, and so there was this like animosity that kind of built, and luckily, fortunately for me and my younger sister, we kind of addressed it early, because
That's awesome.
the longer that it lingers, the harder it is, because with my older sister, I don't speak to her, and so that's something that it's just that it wasn't. The longer that resentment builds, the harder it is to resolve it, or to get to a place where we can be on grounds that aren't going to be shaky.
Right. Yeah.
And that's so I understand when you say that, because that's something that has happened, and then like there's been the opposite of like what happens if we address it earlier.
Right.
Yeah. And so then, what was your relationship like with your parents, if you don't mind me asking?
I think I was an extremely sullen and miserable child. As I look back, I can see that now. So I was probably an extremely hard child to have, and not easy to be close with. So we were never really close. My dad worked a ton. Like he worked 5 days a week at a 9 to 5, but then he worked all weekend. We didn't ever have anyone fix anything. My dad either built it, created it, or fixed it, or repaired it. So he's always in the basement working on something. Yeah, he's MacGyver. If you ever heard of MacGyver, my dad was MacGyver. So
what did he do? What was his job?
He's an electronics engineer, but he's got the engineer's brain. Yeah, so he could take apart a car and put it back together again. He tore off the deck and built a new deck on the house. I mean, he just fixed and did everything. So he was always busy, and he had a pretty short temper, and he was really big and loud. So even his normal voice could sound like he was yelling, I think. And when you've got the confirmation bias, like Dad's always mad, so anything he says would sound like he was mad. It most likely wasn't true at this point. But yeah, he could be really loud and get mad easily. And my mom and I didn't get along at all. I think I was a source of shame for her, just being unplanned, put it that way. And and she's passed away. So there's a lot of regret with that. Like you wish you could, and I mean, I don't have contact with my dad either, but there's a lot of wishing things could have been different. So
right. Yeah, that's always hard. And sorry to hear about your mom. It's with your I'll tell you how I see things now, because there are a lot of things that like I wish were different. With my parents, I've reconnected with my dad. I didn't speak to him for like 12 years, something like that. And it was I saw my dad very much through my mom's lens. And when my parents split, my mom took me and my older brother. There's 6 of us. I'm the 5th. And so then my brother, so the 4th, and my mom took myself and my brother, and then we moved to we were born in the US, but then moved to Mexico, and then moved back to the US when my mom left my dad. And that happened a couple times. So when that happened, or actually 3 times. And when that happened, there was this like, what do you call it? This view of my dad that emerged from what my mom said about him. And so then I had that confirmation bias you were talking about, where it's like, oh yeah, that's the thing that my mom says he does. And the why was whatever my mom said it was. And so I didn't have my own opinion about him until, as an adult. And I was like, you know what? I don't even know, as I started my healing journey, I don't even know who he is. I know about him through my mom, what she says about him, but I don't really even know myself. And so, I reached out to him, and so we got in contact. And so I found out that while some of the things that he does is what my mom says, why he does them, I have a different answer for. And the issue either way is that there are things that they both do that I understand and have empathy for, that, they didn't have parents really that loved them. And so then that created them with the inability to also be loving parents, and because they don't love themselves. And so then when that happened, I had to kind of like accept that the outcome I want is not that. Like as much as I want it, like as much as I would love
Right.
that I could talk to them and be like, this is what I need from you, even as an adult. I think that that there is no resolution that I have control over. That is the only resolution I have is how I treat them.
Yep.
And that's the best we can do. And that's the piece that I have to come to, that at times I still go, yeah, I wish it was different. So when you talk about like the regret, I guess want to tell you what the perspective is if you try to like work that out. And I don't know that because they're different people, it would have ever come to the resolution that I want. Does that make sense? Like,
no, that makes perfect sense. It does.
yeah.
And ultimately, when we work on ourselves, we can't change the people around us. We change our relationship to them. And, it's what we do inside. It's the story we tell. It's the meaning we create about everybody else's behaviors. So my regrets are, I wish I learned some of these things that I can do now to change how I interpret my world, because I was a angry, sullen, drama queen, and I blamed my entire life on situations outside of me. It was mom's fault, dad's fault, my sister's fault. It was always everyone else's fault until that point in my 40s when I realized, no, actually, you have to take 100% responsibility. Because if you don't take 100% responsibility, that leaves you with 0% ability to change your life, right? So I had to stop blaming everyone and decide what I wanted and actually start taking action to get it. Because just telling I had a bad childhood, or I can't feel good about myself, or I don't have good self-esteem because of my family, or any of that wasn't going to ever get me anything I wanted in life. And with that change of perspective also came forgiveness, and the understanding that just like I've been doing the best I could, so are they. Why do I get to say I'm doing the best I can, but they don't? Right? We claim that for ourselves, but we still blame other people. So at that point, I started to stop blaming, stop complaining, take 100% responsibility, decide what I want, and move forward, take action. And that was a really radical shift for me. Really radical.
Yeah.
But
I mean, but that's an important path. Like in order to do what you're doing, right? Like same thing with me.
yep.
And again, like we're human beings. So I make mistakes all the time. I trip over, I go, like the old stuff, the old patterns of thinking don't go away. At least not for me. They still show up. But I try to now that I have a different perspective, I try to like talk to that voice and go, well, this is the other side. And being that in a perspective kind of goes, yeah. And it sort of balances that thinking, because it's still there. It's just not, I would say that it's just gotten quieter. I'm able to talk to it now. Before it was this thing I couldn't approach. It was so heavy. It would create such a reaction out of me that there was almost like a loss of emotional control. And being able to have that other perspective is like something that kind of dulls that reaction. And so it's still there. I would say that I don't think that it goes away. And but it is something that I think we can over time tame, if that makes any sense.
It does. This is something I explain to my clients, and coming from the aspect of actually re-imprinting memories or changing the memories. But when you start, you've got, I call it a least action pathway. It's just like, this is the way everything goes. You have one way of thinking about it, one way of seeing it. Then, so you've got option A. And then we begin to depotentiate the memories, re-imprint the memories, and now you create option B. All of a sudden, there's choice now. You can do the old response, the old story, but you can also pause in the moment and decide to use some of the tools that we learn along the journey. And you can remind yourself of the changes you've created. So you can, and then the more often you do that, whenever you interrupt a pattern, you literally force the brain to go and do something new. You're no longer strengthening the old path, the old neurology, or the old wiring. You force it to create those new paths, that new wiring, that new way of thinking and being. So I call those choice points, but once you start to make those changes, now it's not just option A. This is how we get triggered and we do this. No, we've got awareness and we can choose option B, and you're going to keep strengthening it the more you choose option B. And then it's like that old classic dirt path that you stop walking along. It starts to grow over again until it's gone.
And so then how, if you don't mind me asking, how does it, how do you get to the point from, we talked about, growing up, what it was like with your parents and your sister and all that. At what point did you decide, was there a specific thing? I know you mentioned panic attacks when you were younger was a motivation, but was there like a specific thing that happened, or was it just over time of trying different things and going, yes, maybe not this, and then you got to this form of therapy, or how did you get there?
So let's see. In 2010, I moved out to Las Vegas and I got married, and I married an alcoholic. So, and I thought they were sober. In the intervening time, I moved from New York to Las Vegas. They gave up their 14 years of sobriety. So that was a bad discovery. And I basically jumped out of the frying pan of life into the fire, new town, new job. Everything was awful. But within 1 month of moving to Las Vegas, I saw a video. It was a Dr. Mercola was promoting the World Tapping Summit with the Ortners. And I was like, well, that looks like stupid, but I was desperate. And I mean, when you're really desperate and you feel like you have ruined your life and there was just nowhere else to go, you'll do the craziest things. So I started with that tapping. And that made a difference. It became my little lifeline. And then I resumed meditating, because I've been meditating on and off since I was 12, of all things. But I resumed meditating and ended up leaving within 2 years. And then found Faster EFT. So being from New York, I like the faster version, because sometimes when I'm doing traditional EFT, I'm kind of like, okay, really, we're going around again? No. Can we just stop this? And faster EFT is it's much more direct and in and out. I love both, don't get me wrong, but back then I was desperate and I want to change as fast. So faster appealed to me, And yeah, so then in 2013, I was making these changes, but I hit another wall, and it was where I realized this is where the wake up from blaming and complaining went. Like, I was still working on myself and doing the tapping, but when I wasn't tapping, I was still telling everyone how much my life sucked and it was everyone else's fault. So in 2013, I got clear. I set goals that were positive, things that I wanted, instead of just talking about what I didn't want. And then I started taking real, genuine action. I recognized, okay, I'm a personal trainer. I've been a personal trainer probably for 10 years, and I wanted to do something else. I wanted to maybe do this tapping thing with people and help people change their brain. So I realized, well, in order to do it, you're not just going to wake up one day and have a new career. You have to actually do something. So I got a home study course. I gave up watching TV. I made all these different changes. And then in 2013, it was like the gears started to catch. I was creating traction. I really started to make changes. So from 2010 to 2013, that was like this massive incubation period.
It's interesting you mentioned that it was that relationship really that for me, it was a relationship as well that took me where I'm at, where it was like, I've had enough kind of thing, where it's like, all right, what's happening? Because for me, I don't know if it was like this for you, but for me, when I started this healing journey, it was during that relationship. It's about 3 years ago now. It was me trying to have a healthy relationship, because I didn't know what that even meant. And I was very much used to the patterns that my parents kind of did. And that whole thing of, I was under the impression that love was like this thing that, you're always with this person. You always have to be around them. You have to be, just constantly with them. And I didn't realize that that's an attachment. It's not love. And so when I started to figure that stuff out, problems started to arise, obviously, from the relationship. And I started analyzing it and going, well, I want to keep this relationship. So what do I need to do? And so then I started going to therapy. My ex was also in therapy as well. And so I thought, all right, well, I need to catch up. That's how I saw it, is I need to do some work. And so then I started doing the work, and over time I started to kind of wake up to certain things, like the things that I believed about relationships was actually what was hurting me. And then obviously it was weird. It created issues in my relationship because I was under the impression that my partner was also like doing that work. And I'm not saying that they weren't, but maybe it was like something else going on that was preventing them from going to like getting the work in and looking at yourself honestly, like, okay, I did this wrong. Maybe like accountability was an issue that I would run into a lot. And so then when I started doing the work, it was almost like a threat. It was like, ooh, you're doing all these things. And I was like, oh, this seems weird. Like, I thought you'd be happy about it. And so then this thing happened where over time I started kind of calling things out. I was like, well, my boundaries, I started putting boundaries up. And then that's where the relationship started to kind of crack. And it's funny because like, not funny, like comedically, but ironically, like it was just this like thing of, it's like, what's happening here? Like, what's going on? And then like the relationship just cracked, and it kind of left me to really sit on, okay, what is it that I am attracting? What is it that I am saying is okay in my life? Because that's also something to take accountability for, is that, all right, I'm an adult now. I'm aware there are things that are bringing me here. So what is it that I'm doing that is allowing these things to take place? And so that's what this whole journey is entailing, and I'm still in it. It's very much act in progress. And so that's really the same, what you're talking about. It's, well, not the same, but it's a similar circumstance where it's like
very similar. I
hit rock bottom, and I was like, why can I not do this correctly? That was what was like, what is happening? And that has taken me on this journey. And I'll tell you that's there's a lot that that I'm still learning, but have learned since, and I understand now. But it wouldn't, if it wouldn't have been for that like catastrophic event that it was for me, then it wouldn't have opened my eyes to what it is I needed to do still.
Yeah.
So
that's completely true. We're not going to get, if you go back into the past and you change any little thing, you're not going to be where you are today. I mean, all of those things are the building blocks for the choices that we make, and it's huge. So it's all working perfectly, even if we don't like all of what we've experienced. It's led us to where we are. And I think that's pretty amazing.
I 100% agree. It's everything is happening exactly as it's supposed to. And it does feel that way. No matter how because obviously you go back, and I did that a lot. As I would go back, and like, what if I would have done this instead? What if I would have, maybe not said this and done this instead? I don't think I would have, because I tell myself, I would have still done this if that wouldn't have taken place. And maybe that's true, but would I have fully invested in it? Would I have put all of this time into it? And would I have changed in the way that I did? And those are questions that I can't really answer, other than, well, I did when that happened. So that's all I got. And so, I agree with you completely. I think that's 100%. It's working exactly as it's supposed to. And so then how would you describe the process? Is there a process that you follow for how you do these interactions, how these sessions with people?
Yeah, the beginning part of a session is what I call the intake, and it's where I ask my questions. I usually spend about 45 minutes asking questions to figure out what the structure of the problem is. And that's going to be, what are the memories? What are the beliefs about self, like the meaning we're giving the memories? What is our worldview? And then what are the feelings, sensations, emotions that make it real? Because that's the way the memories grab you, right? It's because you feel it to be true. So I spend a good 45 minutes asking those questions, and then also finding, so that's the baggage that you want to change. Then we're going to find, what is it that you want? What is the target state? What is the ideal future that you feel like something's stopping you from having? So then we find out that, get some happy memories, and then it's change work. I will use, there's a few different techniques I use, predominantly Faster EFT and Havening techniques. And those are the things we use to depotentiate the memories, release the emotions, change the images, the sounds, the voices, all the feelings, sensations, emotions. And then the end is really focusing on that target state, making it real and compelling and strong, because the brain craves what's familiar. And if what's familiar is a bunch of crap, you're just going to keep defaulting to choosing things that keep you in that crap. So it is really important to take that target state, that dream life, that vision, and interact with it so compellingly that you start to make that familiar. Because then the bad is starting to become unfamiliar. You're depotentiating, you're releasing it, you're re-imprinting it, and now you're spending time in your ideal future. It feels good, it becomes familiar. So then when you create those changes and your life genuinely changes, it feels more surreal. It's like, it's not the first time you've been there. It's familiar, even though you know it's different. It's really fascinating, because every time I've created those changes and I've let go of some of that baggage, and I've heard myself say something new, or I've taken an action that I used to resist, it's like, oh, wow, that's surreal, but familiar. It's like deja vu, even though you know it's new. So it's really cool.
What would you say are challenges for you when you're doing those sessions? Is there something that, have you run into any like blocks that you're like, oh, this is something that is going to take some time? And if so, how do you get past those?
It's patience. So in the beginning, when I would work with people, we focused on like 3 to 6 sessions, and that went on for probably a decade. That's how I would work with people. And now I realize it takes way more time than that. So now I do a 6-month program with people. It's 1-to-1, and it's 6 months, and you just take the time it takes. So it really takes a lot of patience, because you want to find and soothe the safety issues in the unconscious mind, because all of these habits or programs or patterns, the memories, they're held on to protect us.
Right.
So it's a cooperative process. This is a do with process. This isn't me on the outside, bippity boppity boo and you're fixed. So you really want to make sure that there's trust and rapport, and it takes as long as it takes, is one of the big things I've learned. So
what has, I guess, would you consider yourself a healer?
I think that word has been applied to me a lot.
Would you say that, or what would you say you've learned about that path of being a healer? What has it taught you?
All healing is self-healing, and our job is to just remove the barriers. That's my true belief on it, is that and that's why I struggle with it, is I've healed myself, but I don't think I help people heal themselves. So I don't know that I like that word healer so much, because I truly believe 100% all healing is self-healing. You want to allow people to remove whatever's blocking them from doing their healing. And it could be an attitude, a belief, a memory, a safety issue. So that's a twisted response, though.
No, I think I agree with you. I see it that way too. I think that the act of you wanting to, all healing is self-healing. And the reason why I believe that, and it actually was about to be what I was about to ask you, it was about to be connected into what I was going to ask you, which was that, do you believe that when you help others, that is also something that is somehow healing to you? Because that's, I don't know what it is, but for me, when I talk to people and I have these conversations, this path of me recording my healing, but also talking to other people healing, has also contributed to my healing. And so when you say that, right, like that's why I was about to ask you, do you think that that's true, that you, when you talk to others and you do this path that you're doing, there's also some healing in that for you?
Yes, I think that is 100% true. Very often the people I work with are going to, there's an interesting synchronicity in that they'll echo things that I've experienced, and they, in those echoes, they can point a finger at where I might have another opportunity, like, oh, there's still a little bit of there left, and I can do that work myself. So, and the more I work with people, everyone I work with, I tap with them as we do the whole session. I do the Havening touch with them as I do the session. So I am continually working on myself as I go through it. And so I'm also a hypnotherapist, and in hypnotherapy, one of the things that we're taught is you go first. Like, if you want someone to go into a certain state, if you want them to be calm or confident, you go there first. So I'm always doing that, releasing and letting go in the session, basically. So I go there first. I'm showing them how to let it go, modeling it. So that has to change me. It does change me.
When you mentioned that hypnotherapy, is that, do you normally do them together or separate?
So it's weaved in there, because everything we do with memories is hypnosis, basically. As soon as you step into a memory, you hypnotized yourself. It is all one trance to another. So we're always flowing in and out of that hypnosis, self-hypnosis, and those trances. So it's completely weaved into the sessions. And then I also, I make sure that my clients, after I work with them, they get a 30-day guided hypnosis, or I call it guided visualization audio. So they're constantly, every day they listen to that, and it's putting in the good stuff. It's the, what do you want in the future? What are your happy memories? And there's a little healing process in there. So it's all hypnosis, the way I look at it.
Right. And so then, do you think, or do you, I'm sure then you believe in like, what's the word? Manifestation? Is that like do you believe in manifestation?
100%. Yeah.
I'm in the process of kind of like playing around with that. And I've noticed that from what I'm seeing, right, there's a suspicion I have that it seems as though what you believe subconsciously about the world you live in is what happens, is the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And whether that's a good thing or that's a bad thing, it seems as though no matter what it is, if you subconsciously believe that about yourself and about others, then that's what you receive. And that has been what I've experienced. Now, I don't know about you, and maybe you can kind of speak to this, but what do you believe?
It is 100% true. And it goes back to the confirmation bias.
Yeah.
Because we are always going to confirm what we already believe to be true. So you're going to look, everything becomes a proof. Everything is a confirmation bias. So, in order to change what you're manifesting, it's going in and changing that blueprint. And that's the form of the memories that's creating your confirmation bias. Because if you've got garbage in your memories, you're going to constantly be confirming garbage everywhere you go. As you upgrade your memories, your confirmation bias upgrades as well, because now you start to expect good things to happen. Now you believe in yourself, and everything isn't a reflection of, oh, I'm not good enough, so this happens, that means I'm not good enough. It starts to be, I feel really good about this, I'm good at this. And then you start to experience, that confirms it.
Right.
So our ability to manifest is always going to go back, I think, and it's a reflection of what we already believe to be true based on our past references, which is why it's so important to do something about them.
Yeah, that's a huge, that was a very important statement. That is exactly why it's important to look back, and why self-love is is like this, I guess, the initial stepping stone to whatever else you want. Is if you love yourself enough to believe that you could do something, or that you could have a specific future you want, then that's the first step to getting there. But until you believe that subconsciously, you might say it verbally, and consciously you might be saying, well, yeah, I want to, or I believe that I do believe that I love myself. But if you don't subconsciously believe that, your reality will tell you, it will let you know that that's not what you believe about yourself. And I think that the curiosity, I've talked to other guests about this specifically, is curiosity. The revisiting of the childhood curiosity is so important, because if you can look at things not from a point of resentment but from a point of curiosity, that
Right.
completely changes what happens after that. Whatever you experience, it changes if you're curious about it rather than resentful towards it,
100%.
changes the outcome of what happens after that.
Right. It becomes an opportunity.
Exactly.
Curiosity leads you to opportunities.
And yeah, so I think that that's super important, what you had just said, and I believe that as well. I'm just, like I said, in the process of kind of like figuring out to what depth, what control do we have. I think that that's where I'm at right now. I'm like, it seems as though there's some form of control that we have of maybe not the thing that happens, but rather what happened, how we respond to it, what that does to you. I think
there's
that
I've trained with Jack Canfield, and have you ever heard of, he wrote this given credit for he wrote the Chicken Soup for the Soul series.
Okay.
He's known for that, but there's a book called The Success Principles, which I consider the success Bible. So I've done all his trainings, and one of the things that he teaches, which is what you were literally just saying, is E+R equals O, and E stands for event. So E+R, R is our response, and then the O is the outcome. So we can't do anything about events. They just are, that's whether it's our childhood, whether it's something that happens yesterday, but if you want to influence the outcome to anything, the only thing you can change is how you respond to it. And that's where our freedom is changing our response. If you don't get the outcome, if you don't get the outcome you want, change your response. Everything is a moment where we have a choice, and that's why I call it choice points. But you want to choose the response that gets you the outcome that you want. You can do nothing about an event. It is what it is.
Yeah.
All comes down to our response.
My sister and I were having a chat about this because she's a psychology major, and so she's in her early college years for psychology. And one of the things that we had a chat about was she said that they were talking about what they call a turning point in your life, where at some point you're going to come across some life-changing event, and you have a choice where it's like, do I want to continue down this path, or am I going to do something different? And it seems as though that's a thing for at least most people. Most people that I've talked to have told me that they've had that at some point where they hit this, either a rock bottom or a life-changing event. And yeah, we had a chat about it. And she actually had used me as a reference for like that. She's kind of studying me. And so
cool.
And so she's kind of like looking at me and going, well, for you it was this thing. And that's why I have a better understanding, because I also don't have just my own vantage point of that, of that thing, but of that event or that timeline. My sister was in high school when all that stuff took place. And so she kind of had like a outside view. And now that she's going into college and studying psychology, she's able to kind of analyze it and go, yeah, it seems as though that was your turning point. And I was like, yeah, that's what I would consider that. I think that relationship and the ending of that relationship was that turning point for me, where it's like, okay, let's look at what we have in front of me. Like, something has happened that I would deem catastrophic and a replaying of my childhood. And so it's like, okay, why did that happen? And that's where all this takes place, where I'm at now. But yeah, it was interesting that they call it a turning point. Psychology has already acknowledged that. And no matter whether you see it spiritually or scientifically, or it just seems as though that all points to the same direction.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. That does.
So yeah, that's very interesting. And so then I'm curious, what is it that I guess with your path, do you see yourself doing this for a lifetime, or have you considered anything else?
No, I see myself doing this for my lifetime. I truly love what I do, and I'll continue learning. That's one of my strengths, is I love to continue learning. So I will keep adding tools and skills and expanding my understanding, but helping people help themselves that's my path.
I commend you for it. I think it's a really difficult at least from what I'm going through, it's a pretty difficult path to not just heal yourself, but then also to teach others, to have the patience to teach others, because obviously one of the challenges that I've faced, and again, another conversation my sister and I have had, is that you want to help people and then not take it personally if they still struggle to make the decisions that you can see they need to make. How not to take that personally, and how to be able to still be there if they want your assistance or want your opinion. And I think that that's been a big challenge, is that you are so invested, and it's important to also not take it personal.
Yeah, very important. Not being attached to the results, because when we started out our conversation way at the beginning, and I talked about childhood and feeling responsible, like you get that over sense of responsibility. If I'm just this good, if I'm just perfect, and I don't do this or I do this, they won't fight, or things won't. And that's when we start helping people, it's really important to understand that it's not a reflection of us, right? They are still going to have autonomy. They are at a different part of a spectrum. Like, it took us time to get to the point where we made these healthy choices. So let them have the autonomy. We can show them the options, but according to the stages of learning, sometimes you know what the right thing to do is, and you're still going to default to the old way of being. There's a concept of being at threshold. Have you ever heard that?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, and so sometimes with someone being at threshold, there's 3 responses that they need to be able to say yes to, or you need to identify yes to. Something has to change, it has to be now, and it has to be me. Very often people will come to us and they want something to change, they want it to change now, but they still don't feel it has to be them. They haven't got there, that final point. So they can show up for the sessions, they can do some of the work, but ultimately they're not 100% invested in responsibility. Like, it has to be me and I have to do these things. And so that can be challenging if we get too attached to the results.
Yeah, 100%. And one thing that you said too that also rings true is that a lot of times we will suffer to the point we're able to tolerate, and you'll be surprised the tolerance level of people who have suffered for most of their lives, if not all of their lives. A lot of people can tolerate a lot of suffering before they feel that something needs to change, and that point is different for everybody. So I think that's another reason why it's important not to take it personally, because some people have suffered greatly and throughout most of their lives. And so for them, their threshold is much higher. And so for you, it might be painful, who has maybe less of a threshold or is in that healing path. And so your threshold isn't as high anymore. Right. It can be difficult to watch somebody else suffer. And so then the question is not, what can I do? What can I do to control the situation? But rather, what can I do when they come asking for help? Because that's all they have. That's all I have control over. And those two realities, coming to terms with that again, the threshold of suffering for others can be very, very high before it goes, okay, I'm at rock bottom. Rock bottom looks different for all people.
It does. And, we look at them and think they're suffering. And for them, it's just another day that ends in Y. It's what's familiar. It's all they've ever known. And that whole identity is really hard to change. Like, if I let this go, who will I be? That's a very real, that can trigger people. So it can be very hard to let go of what they've always known. And that's what I talk about with the safety issues, is just allowing that shift to happen. And it shows up differently for people, but there comes a point where you get this identity crisis of like, if I change this, who will I be? I mean, I don't even know what that looks like.
Right.
So,
and speaking on identity, before we start wrapping things up, what is something that for identity, what has it meant for you? How did you get to the point where you understand who you are or who you want to be? Where do you believe that that's an ongoing thing, or do you believe that there's a point you hit where you have mostly an understanding of who you are?
That's an awesome question. I think for me, that's always going to be an ongoing thing because growth is something that I thrive on. I'm continually wanting to learn more and expose myself to more. And so I think my identity will continually evolve in that way. But it has changed a lot over the years as well. Like looking back to being a sullen, miserable, angry, drama queen as a child to someone who now I can just take what life throws at me. I'm resilient now. I can roll with things. I will do the work, and I've let go of being a perfectionist. Now, imperfect action is great. Starting ugly is great. And everything doesn't have to have a bow on top of it. It doesn't have to look perfect or sound perfect. So, and going from someone who needed external validation to feel good, like that kind of identity, to someone who I validate myself now. That's a huge change. I mean, that's a huge change. I don't need compliments. I mean, they're nice if someone wants to give me one, but I self-validate. I know my value. And those are huge changes to my identity that have evolved very slowly over time. And it'll continue evolving.
Oh, I like that. Thank you for sharing. And also, before we do wrap things up, is there anything that you would like to talk about that we haven't chatted, or do you think we've hit a lot of the things you were interested in talking about?
No, we've definitely hit the things I was interested in talking about. This has been absolutely delightful. So.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing too. And I do have a few last questions I ask every guest, if you don't mind.
Awesome.
We'll start with, is there anything that you would like to share regarding where people can follow you, where people can see your work, anything that you'd like to share with the audience?
Oh, sure. That is fantastic. So on Substack, I have a publication called Dehypnotized with Nicola, and that's a great place to follow me. And then on YouTube, I have Faster Changes with Nicola. Those are the two places I show up. I do notes on Substack more than I do public articles, but I'm looking to do more articles. And YouTube, I do a weekly live stream where I actually do some tapping and self-havening with people, and it's always focused on feel goods. Like you want to feel like yesterday, was it yesterday? 2 days ago. So it's on Friday. Friday was increasing confidence and then flowing into increasing your ability to take bold action. So I do those weekly, and that helps a lot of people. So those are the two places I show up.
And have you discovered purpose? And if so, what do you think it is? If not, what do you think it might be?
So my purpose is in helping people heal, to basically change the world, because every single person I help heal, it changes their relationships with so many people, which it just creates these massive ripple effects in the world. And that is my purpose, is just helping heal the world one person at a time.
If you could speak to your childhood self, what would you say?
I think about this a lot, actually. I would tell her to read more. Don't take it all so personally and focus on what you want. So.
I love it. Nicola, thank you so much for making time for this conversation. This has been a great conversation and a lot for me to think about. I hope we can chat again sometime soon. I like to check in. I like to check in with guests every now and again. And so if maybe some day down the road you're open and we can make some time for it, I'd love to chat again.
100%. I love this, and it's been a joy to get to talk with you, Josh. I really thank you. I can't thank you enough for the honor.
Likewise, thank you so much for showing up, and we'll chat again soon. We'll be in contact, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You too. You take care.
Mm-hmm.